The NBA season is about a quarter of the way through, and we've seen a lot of action from this rookie class. In my opinion, they've been extremely surprising. There's a lot of upside to these prospects. I'm going to go in and I'm going to rank all 14 prospects that have played at least 9 games. So somebody like Dylan Harper with the Spurs, unfortunately, due to injury, will not take place in this rookie rankings. Although if he was, he would be a top 5 ranked rookie, in my opinion. What he's been able to do on the floor so far for the Spurs is playing at a really high level, which is unlike something that we were expecting. I thought it would take a few games, maybe even a couple of years for him to see some real action with guys like Fox and Stephon Castle in the mix as well. But he has asserted himself as a serious rotation guy and, quite frankly, could be a starter by the end of this season. So really happy for Harper. That's my honorable mention for these rookie rankings. But let's come in with number 14. That is going to be Zion James with Charlotte. Now, this is a guy who is playing in a very loaded backcourt. LaMelo Ball, other rookie Con Knipple, Colin Sexton, Brandon Miller sometimes gets some run at the 2. So for Zion James, a guy who comes out of Duke, who originally transferred from Tulane, he's been a pretty effective scorer of the basketball, averaging 7.6 points per game on 46% shooting. His effective field goal shooting percentage is also pretty high at 59.2. Another thing that really came of note was he plays pretty well in pace. His offensive rating is at 112, which the Hornets, of course, play at a very high pace. But if you're looking for this guy to develop as a passer, that's probably the next part of his game. He's not necessarily running point a lot of the time when he's on the floor, but when he does, I expect him over time to become a more effective passer. Now, defensively, I thought he's played all right. His offensive rating is really high. His defensive rating is towards the bottom third of this class. Net rating is pretty surprisingly high for such a limited minutes guy. This is not something that you usually see out of players that play in spurts. But when he goes on the floor, he plays with high energy. And he, quite frankly, reminds me a lot of his teammate, Colin Sexton. He's about 6'5"-ish. And these were kind of the attributes that were given to him coming out of college. I think he's actually a really good shooter, shooting 44% from 3. I believe that's second in the class and probably first among the class in terms of qualified shooters. He shoots the ball, I think, 3.5 or 4 times a game. So at 44%, that's a pretty good clip. Player impact estimate was pretty low, in my opinion, but when you divide that by his usage percentage, I thought that's pretty effective in my opinion. Now, in a lot of these moments in terms of player impact estimate, he's not playing meaningful minutes, but when he's on the floor, I'm surprised to say the least that he is playing at such an effective rate given the Hornets are just not that good of a team. So that's where I have him at number 14. He's last in this rookie rankings, but I still think he has a lot of upside to him in terms of shooting the basketball. So let's look at number 13. That's Ace Bailey. Now, usually when I'm doing rookie rankings, I am quite critical of what's going on. With Ace Bailey, this has got to be the guy that has the highest bust potential out of the entire lottery. That being said, the situation that he's in is horrible. He didn't want to go to Utah allegedly or reportedly or whatever, and Danny Ainge, the GM there in Utah, said, I don't give a rat's ass. You're coming to Utah. And quite frankly, the play has showed. In my opinion, the stats here reflect a guy who just doesn't want to be in Utah. His defensive rating isn't only last in this class, but it is by far last. His net rating is also by far the worst, or maybe second worst in this class. It's unbelievably bad. He's not that good of a shooter. He's shooting 30% from the floor. And this, quite frankly, looks like a shell of the guy who was playing at Rutgers last year. And that's what's kind of alarming here. You have a top 5 pick that was an extremely high usage guy at Rutgers, a volume scorer, and yet here he is now in Utah, crowded by a lot of other longer 2s and 3s. and he just can't see the floor in a meaningful way. He's getting a good amount of minutes. His usage rate is one of the higher ones in the class, but his turnovers are not great for the amount of time that he touches the ball. He can't shoot it from three. His rebounding is relatively low given his opportunities to grab boards. He's not passing the ball. No blocks, really no steals involved in his game. His player impact estimate is one of the lowest, especially when you divide that by his usage rate. It's one of the worst in the class. And so his overall grade here at a 54 is actually pretty damning, comparing it to Sion James. Now, Sion James does have a slightly worse grade, but reflecting with what the minutes show, which are not factored into the grade, Ace Bailey is a very alarming prospect right now. I don't know what his future is in Utah, but just a quarter way through the season, I'm not going to obviously throw out the term bust quite yet because, dear God, that would be uncalled for. But highest bust potential, he's the guy. Let's talk about number 12, though, his teammate, Walter Clayton. 6.2 points per game on 34% shooting from three. I would have hoped, given the experience that he had in college, I was hoping that that number would be higher. Unfortunately for Walter Clayton, I think the NBA is just a little bit steeper of a staircase than he was probably expecting. A lot of people also kind of thought that Walter Clayton would do really well in today's NBA, given that it's all about three-pointers. The problem is, though, is that Walter Clayton in college, yes, was an elite shooter, but he was not going up up against the defenders of the NBA. Everyone is longer, everyone is quicker, and everyone knows how to guard the perimeter. The same cannot be said in college basketball. And so that's kind of why you see his shooting numbers dip a little bit. Effective field goal percentage is just at 50. His usage rate is decently high for the amount of minutes that he gets at 16. Player impact estimate is higher than his teammate Ace Bailey, who's getting more usage and more minutes. So goes to show you that he's having a better season so far than Ace is. But I don't necessarily know what a long-term future in the NBA looks like for him. He's a pretty ball-dominant guard, but he can pass at an effective rate. I think he could play very well in a high-pace system, which as of right now, Utah is not that, but potentially going forward, absolutely could be. So Walter Clayton, pretty exciting prospect coming out of college, and I still think that he has the potential to continue to grow in his role in Utah. Maybe he can just become a seventh or eighth man there who takes the ball up the court and threatens to shoot from 27 feet out. You have to pull a guard or two out to help defend the pick and roll, and he can really start to take advantage of that and pass the ball down low and or shoot the ball. So we'll see about Walter Clayton. Next up, we've got Trey Johnson. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the better volume scorers in this draft class. However, he started the season off really hot, but has cooled down as of recently. Part of that is Bilal Coulibaly, I believe is how you pronounce his name, is actually returned for the Wizards. He's soaking up some of those minutes and does not really space the floor well with Trey Johnson. I'm curious to see what Trey looks like as the Wizards season goes forward. CJ McCollum could be a guy that we see move at the trade deadline to a potential contender. I mean, I doubt that very seriously, but I expect Trey Johnson's role in this offense to continue to grow. Like I said, his three-point percentage was really high to start the year, but as we see rookies start to get adjusted and they play more meaningful minutes, they start to go up against better defenders, and you see Trey Johnson's numbers are dipping now. Now, defensively, I was a little worried. His defensive rating is pretty low, which I really didn't see a lot of poor defensive effort in or when he was at Texas. But for right now, I'm a little concerned about his ability to defend quicker guards and or bigger players. It seems that he is a strictly tall two, shorter four, and just typical small forward defender, which was not exactly the role that I was hoping for him. I was hoping that he would eventually become a 1-4 guy and could help on pick and rolls. But right now, given that he's so young, I'm not going to discredit him for that just particularly more than any other guy in this class. Effective shooting percentage is decently high for such a volume score, but I would like to see that number get up to around the 56 or 57% range. In player impact estimate was relatively low given his usage percentage, pretty much on that Ace Bailey level. I think the difference between Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson is the fact that Trey Johnson can space the floor, has showed a little bit more effort to rebound. His rebounds per game versus his rebound chances are much closer together than Ace Bailey's. So once again, this is a guy that has a promising career as a volume scorer. What I would like to see him develop into is a classic 3-and-D guy, but the defensive end of the floor has got a lot of work. So that's why he sits here at number 11. Number 10, Igor Dimin. Now, a lot of people pronounce his name differently, but I'm just going to go with that because that's how I've learned it for now. If I figure out another way to say it, I promise I'll fix it. But this guy is one of the better passers of this class. Perimeter-wise, I think he's one of the better perimeter players. We have not seen him star in this offense with Brooklyn so far. Cam Thomas has been soaking up a ton of minutes. I've actually made a video about how confused I am at the Nets' inability to integrate young players into their offense in a serious role. He has a 17.1% usage rate, which I thought was actually high based off of the film that I saw. I really didn't see him being used in that manner. Now, defensively, once again, like Trey Johnson, like Ace Bailey, he's kind of a liability. But, I didn't see a lack of effort, in my opinion. This is a guy that's wanting to go out there and try pretty hard. He's averaging 0.8 steals per game. I'd like to see that get over 1, given the fact that he's pretty much defender number 2 or 3 on the perimeter when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets' current scheme. So 3-point percentage, decently high. Field goal percentage is very low. What that shows me, especially when you look at the tape, is inside the arc, he cannot score. He's not a scorer. He needs to develop his ability to shoot inside the arc. I think he's a pretty damn good 3-point shooter, and that's about it when it comes to his offensive repertoire in terms of scoring. Doesn't really have a bag right now, but I think given the fact that he's so young, that will develop over time. For a guard, I thought he's a pretty damn good rebounder. He grabs almost every rebound in terms of rebound chances for him. So player impact estimate is a little bit higher than Trey Johnson's, and his grade is also a little bit higher. I'll explain my formula for the grade at the end of this video, but this is where I've got Igor right now. Let's talk about number 9, Colin Murray-Boyles, old CMB. This, in my opinion, is one of the more exciting prospects because he's behind a lot of guys there in Toronto that are trying to see meaningful minutes. And the way that he is seeing the court right now is because of his defensive effort. He has the best defensive rating out of any prospect in this class at 110.9, which is actually pretty damn effective for a undersized 4/5. So really happy to see that. 3-point percentage to me was through the roof. I actually don't know what the volume is on that. I'd have to go back and take a look, but his usage rate and player impact estimate are I think the 9th or 8th highest in the class. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot, given the fact that his usage rate is at 17.4. I thought he's played pretty well in this limited Toronto offense. You don't really see the bigs getting the ball in this offense. RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, the wings, even the guards, Grady Dick, they all spot up on the 3-point line or post up at the top of the free throw line at the elbow. But Colin Murray-Boyles doesn't do either of those things particularly well, in my opinion. What really has him out there quite often is his high intensity and effort. So I'm very excited to see where his career goes. He's played pretty well for Toronto so far, and I want to see him carve out a more meaningful role on the offensive side of the basketball. Let's look at number 8 now, Will Richard in Golden State. This was one of the most exciting ones that I've done out of any of the prospects. Offensive and defensive rating wise, they're pretty close together. I was surprised to see his offensive rating is so high, given that his usage rating is a little bit lower than some of the other prospects on this list. But what we see right here is a classic 3-and-D guy. I think he had the 3rd or 4th best defensive ratings in the class. He defends the wing at a very efficient level. He's averaging 1.1 steals per game. He shoots the ball at a pretty effective rate, 42% from three, 57.7% from the floor, and his effective field goal percentage was one of the highest in the class at 70%. So player impact estimate, although he's not really getting a ton of starts in Golden State, not very surprised, very excited to share that this is turning into another hit in the Golden State front office. Now, they've changed power dynamics over the last few years. Mike Dunleavy is now the guy there, and I think he's done a pretty good job at setting this Warriors team up to be younger, faster, and more athletic going forward. Will Richard, although he's a little older than some of the other prospects, I think he is fitting his role in Golden State damn near perfectly. Averaging 9 points a game on this effective shooting percentage, you're going to continue to see the floor in Golden State. That's the type of player that they love. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Derek Queen. Now, the next two guys that I'm going to be ranking here, I should probably have them higher, but the reason that I don't is because look at the number under usage rate. It's through the roof. Derek Queen and, spoiler alert, Jeremiah Fears, both of these guys are being used by the Pelicans through the roof. As a matter of fact, for my grading system, I think Jeremiah Fears actually broke the scale and ended up scoring a higher number than even possible in the usage rate category. So that being said, let's continue and talk about Derek Queen. This is a do-it-all guy. A lot of people have started comparing him to a Jokic or an Alperen Sengun. The problem with that comparison is he's a little undersized. He's not as tall as they are, but he's a very effective rebounder. He could score the ball at a decent percentage from inside the arc. He is not a three-point shooter. He's averaging 10% from three. Hasn't attempted a lot, but that being said, Derek Queen, he's going to have to develop as a shooter if he wants to be a serious threat on the basketball court in terms of playing meaningful winning basketball. You see his usage rate right there at 22.4 versus his player impact estimate at 10.3. That's not very good, although I will say his defensive prowess is very high. He's a very high IQ player. That's what I really like about Derek Queen. He's an effective passer. He is being a little careless with the basketball, but I think that just has to do with his usage rate. From what I see when he actually plays in the system that New Orleans has set up, he plays at an effective level, especially as of recently. Early on in the season, he wasn't getting a ton of run, even though the Pelicans traded their 2026 unprotected pick for him. But now you see he's starting to get those minutes in New Orleans, and the numbers are starting to reflect that. I think by the end of this year, he'll probably be third or fourth in Rookie of the Year voting. Right now, I have him at number 7 just because I need to see a bigger sample size. Now we talk about his teammate, Jeremiah Fears. This guy has the highest usage rate in the entire class, and the numbers kind of reflect it. I think he's not done a terrible job at playing with the keys or the tools that New Orleans has given him. 15 points per game on 45% from the floor. The notes were that he needed to develop as a shooter. I thought he's outperformed his, initial prospects. I think he's done a good job in New Orleans. Now, he's not that effective of a passer, only 2.8 assists per game with 2.6 turnovers per game. He has the ball a ton. His defensive rating is awful. He is going to have to develop as kind of an undersized guard there on the defensive end. Negative 19.8 net rating. But once again, I think these numbers speak less to the play that I'm seeing on the court and more to the numbers that I'm seeing in terms of, the Pelicans' just poor roster chemistry, right? We have a ton of defensive-minded players, not a lot of offense. Jeremiah Fears doesn't get the looks that he needs on either end of the floor. His player impact estimate is in the toilet at 8.9. But once again, in my opinion, he has been dealt a really bad hand, and he's playing at about as high a level as you would expect from somebody that wasn't a top 5 guy in terms of the draft, but ended up being a top tier caliber lottery pick. And in my opinion, he's performed at a more than serviceable level. I think Jeremiah Fears has a future in the NBA as a starter on a meaningful basketball team, but we're going to have to wait and see what that looks like in New Orleans because that might not ever happen. So let's talk about the top 5 now. This is where it gets interesting, and I can understand why some people are upset at my number 5 pick, VJ Edgecombe. Now, Edgecombe started off this rookie class or campaign of his on a scorching hot level. I think he scored 36 points on night number 1 versus the Celtics. Ended up choking those 2 free throws at the end, but the 76ers still got the dub. He's averaging 15.5, 5.7 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and his usage rate is relatively low compared to his numbers. The reason that I do not give him as high of a grade as some of the others is because, number 1, his effective shooting percentage has plummeted in the month of November. He has not shot the ball well at all. And then secondarily, out of all these rookies, he probably has the best situation. He's able to thrive because not only is he a good prospect, but number 2, it's because he doesn't have to carry the load offensively or defensively. You have Maxey. I mean, obviously you have a bunch of injuries. Paul George is in and out. Joel Embiid is in and out, but you still have other players on that roster like Kelly Oubre that can carry some of that load offensively. So that being said, Edgecombe, I'm sure, would be in the top 3 for a lot of other guys. For right now, he sits at number 5. I could absolutely make an argument for him to be in the top 3. Starting with the defensive end of the floor. Once again, I don't probably give him enough credit here because he is showing that he can be an elite defender. However, once again, he's not having to take on the responsibility of some of these other guys guarding some of the best scorers in the league. So Edgecombe sits at number 5 for right now. His player impact estimate is actually extremely low, and I think that just speaks volumes to not empty calorie numbers, because I wouldn't throw that onto a rookie that's only played like 14 games. But I will say that a lot of his numbers as of recently are not coming in the most meaningful ways. So the player impact estimate here had a lot to do with the weight of where Edgecombe lies. If that was a little bit higher, I could guarantee he'd be in the top 2 or the top 3. Excuse me. Now, sitting at number 4, this is a guy, once again, that is playing extremely effective when he sees the floor. 11.9 usage percentage, but a 10.9 player impact estimate. I don't know if there's another guy on this list that has a damn near 1-to-1 ratio. That's extremely impressive to me. He has been an unbelievable around the rim player on both ends of the floor. He's averaging 10 points a game, 7.1 rebounds, shooting 81% from the floor. I think he's done a phenomenal job. 2.2 blocks per game. His defensive rating is the 2nd or 3rd highest in the class. His net rating is near a 0, which there's only one player in the entire class that has a positive net rating. That's VJ Edgecombe. Once again, usage rating in the toilet, right? He's only being used 12% of the time, which doesn't sound like a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, newsflash, it's not. He plays so well. I think he's going to develop into a serious rim-protecting starting center in this league. At 81% from the floor, you really can't ask for anything better. That's why he gets such a high grade here. It's not because of the raw numbers, even though he's averaging, I think, damn near close to 18 or 19 PRAs, and then over 3 blocks and steals per game. Not to mention, he takes relatively good care of the basketball. His offensive rating is pretty damn high for being just a finishing center. That being said, Ryan Kalkbrenner right now at number 4, and I think I have his teammate, Colin Knippel, yes sir, at number 3. This is a guy who I have not been that excited about. I'll give him credit. He has been the best scorer of the basketball so far throughout the entire rookie campaign from all these guys in the class. I'll talk about number 2 and number 1 in just a second. But in terms of volume shooting and volume scoring, he does it at an elite level. I think he can absolutely have an argument for being the number 1 prospect in this class so far. His numbers show it. 17.5 points per game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal a game. Now, he needs to take a little bit better care of the basketball. Being a guy that's not a typical shot creator, 2.5 turnovers a game is not very good. But that Hornets high-paced system is going to eventually turn into turnovers, so I have a little bit of grace there. His net rating is damn near 0. That's very impressive for a rookie. 58.6% effective field goal percentage from a guy that shoots a ton of threes. That's also very good. But the one thing that really impacted his grade here and wasn't is the reason why he's not number one is his player impact estimate is relatively low on that scale in terms of the other guys in the top five. That's why I downgraded VJ Edgecombe. It's the same exact reason why Con Knipple sits here at number three. Once again, needs to take care of the basketball a little bit better, but volume shooter wise, he's the best in the class so far. Now, this is going to be a relatively hot take. I have Cooper Flagg here at number two. A lot of people have him lower in the class, averaging 15.5, 6 rebounds a game, 3 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.7 blocks on an atrocious 29% from three, but 45% from the field. Usage rate is through the roof. We've seen him play point guard, and quite frankly, in my opinion, he has been giving the worst situation out of any of the rookies that we've talked about tonight. I know Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen are in a god-awful situation in New Orleans, but with Cooper Flagg, Kyrie Irving was supposed to be there. Klay Thompson wasn't supposed to be getting benched. Anthony Davis hasn't played for the majority of the season. There's not a lot to write home about. I don't know if Derek Lively's been playing either. I can't remember seeing him on any of the film. So there's just not a lot to write home about with this Mavericks team. I think Cooper Flagg, yes, has played pretty poorly offensively, especially when it comes to turning the ball over. But in my opinion, this is a guy who has to continue to develop as being, quite frankly, the savior of the franchise. I thought he's done a very good job at being serviceable in a time where there's not really a lot of players on the Mavericks that can do that. He's pretty much the best player on the floor at almost all times with no AD Kyrie. And that says a lot to me. So Cooper Flagg, yes, has not played up to the quote-unquote standard that a lot of people have been expecting of him. However, I think he's been dealt a very poor hand and is performing well above his means in terms of those expectations that I have on him. Not to mention the calculating grade actually had him as the second highest graded player, but no one comes close to my number one player. This is probably my favorite rookie out of any class in the last 6 or maybe 7 years. And that's Cedric Coward. This guy is just Mr. Efficiency. I did an entire grade of an entire ranking system of every one of these categories, from points per game all the way to player impact estimate. Cedric Coward was the only player on that list that did not crack the bottom third in any of these statistical categories. He was top 10 in every single one of them. Unbelievable all-around player, can shoot the basketball better than the majority of the class, can score the basketball at an effective rate. His usage percentage versus player impact estimate, when you look at guys that are averaging over 15% usage percentage, none of them come close to 12.7 player impact estimate. Matter of fact, he's one of the best in the NBA, not only in the rookie class. I have loved watching him play basketball. He fills the lane perfectly. He plays with pace and space. This Memphis Grizzlies team hit the jackpot with a guy like Cedric Coward. Now, some of these numbers are slightly inflated due to the fact that he's one of the more older guys in basketball. Now, he didn't get to play a lot at Washington State last year due to injury, but that being said, I think his experience is showing here, but not in a way that's limiting to his career. I think he's going to continue to develop into being one of the best players out of this class. I think he's going to be the steal of the first round. I have loved watching him play basketball so far. Once again, he's an extremely capable defender. He can guard 1 through 4. He's an effective scorer. He runs the floor at a very high level. He takes care of the basketball. For his usage rate being at 19.2% to only have 1.3 turnovers is unbelievable to be a rookie. He's number 2 in net rating. And like I said, he's the only one out of this rookie class who doesn't have like a clear identifiable weakness. I would like to see these blocks and steals get turned into a few higher tick numbers, but outside of that, there's really not a lot that I could say about Cedric Coward negatively. So overall, guys, here is the full list. This is what I saw. So let me tell you how I calculated the grades. So I took scoring Actually, let me go back to this slide. I took scoring, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, effective field goal percentage, rebounds, assists, blocks and steals, turnovers, net rating, or no, not net rating, player impact estimate, and usage. So scoring took up 15% of the grade. Shooting took up another 15%. Rebounds plus assists took up another 15%. Steals and blocks and turnovers took up 10% apiece. Usage percentage took up 15%. And then player impact estimate took up the other 20%. The reason that player impact estimate to me weighted the heaviest out of all of these categories is, to me, it has probably the best indicator of playing meaningful basketball out of all these statistics. So a guy like Cedric Coward gets a major boost here. The difference between him and Cooper Flagg is the difference between Kon Knueppel and basically the bottom of the second half of this class, Will Richard, right? I was so unbelievably impressed with Cedric Coward. I think all of these numbers show where these players rank in terms of impacting basketball at a high level. Now, there are some outliers here, like Zion James, right, has gotten some effective minutes, but they haven't been impactful. That's why he's near the bottom of this list. Ace Bailey has both played ineffective basketball and unimpactful basketball. Quite frankly, his net rating shows that he has been one of the worst players in basketball. So I need to see a lot more from Ace Bailey. But outside of that, the rest of this rookie class is very promising. These are the top 14 right now. I'll do another one in about 4 or 5 weeks. So that being said, thank you guys all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.